Hi, it's John, and welcome to the channel. Saturday, June the 7th, 6:03 a.m. Let me reach back, grab the big blue mug of coffee. Hope you're having a great start to your weekend. I had not planned on doing a video this morning. I have family, lots of family at the house right now, having a barbecue today, but this is important because something dawned on me after catching up on the news over the last 24 to 36 hours. I'm going to prove to you today that the Liberals are trying to entrench themselves in government, never to be removed from government. And they're not going to do it with good policy or good economic policy. They're going to do it through policy. And I'm going to prove it to you right here. I hope other independent media catch on to this as they're catching on to something else I said about a week ago, which I'll get into in just a moment. First off, we're going to start with the first thing. There's about 4 things I'm going to run through. There may be more. The Liberals want to control your mind. Here's an article from Chris Sims. This is the Toronto Star, written yesterday, CBC to get more money and power. Now, Chris goes on to talk about promises that Mark Carney made prior to the election, and she references this video here. This is Pascal St. Onge, the former Heritage Minister.
CBC does not belong to the Liberals, it does not belong to the Conservatives, and it does not belong to any other political parties. It belongs to the Canadian people. And this is why, to be able to give CBC Radio-Canada the means to fulfill its mandate, I propose that it be financed directly in the legislation instead of in the budget through statutory appropriation.
Statutory appropriations should be established on a per capita basis based on the Canadian population. The average funding for public broadcasters in G7 countries is $62 per person. In Canada, we're currently next to last among G7 countries with $33 per person per year.
So as Chris says in her article, rightfully, CBC is going to get more money and you won't be able to get rid of it. They're going to entrench them in law, controlling the narrative, and we know what that narrative is. It's a Liberal narrative. Not only that, I think the government is going to start giving more money to the legacy media, and they're going to start throttling people like myself and other people I watch online. I believe that's happening now. I don't see Jasmine Lane, Moose on the Loose, The Pleb, Clyde Do Something pop up as recommendations very much anymore since the election. I think this is happening now, and I've seen my number of views go down. It was instantaneous. I think Jasmine Lane has already stated this. The Liberals are going to control what you see on the internet. Bill C-63 is coming in. You've got Stephen Guilbeault right now in charge of what you're going to see when it comes to streaming services. And I also believe that Mark Carney is going to start censoring what you can say on social media. He said this during the election campaign.
Large American online platforms have become seas of racism, misogyny, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and hate in all its forms. And they're being used by criminals to harm our children. My government will act. And today we're announcing our plan to fight crime, to protect Canadians, and to build communities that are safe, secure, and strong. A plan to make Canada secure, to make Canada strong.
If you can control the information, you can control the people. They're going to control what you can see, what you can say, what you can hear. And then eventually, a cop will show up at your door because somebody's reported you for a mean tweet. You'll get fined or go to jail. Don't say it can't happen. It happens in England all the time now. So expect that to happen. So they control your mind and then they can control you, either directly or indirectly. Months ago, you can go back and watch my videos. I mentioned that I expected somebody in the NDP or Liberal Party during the next election campaign to bring up universal basic income, and it didn't happen. But boy, just happened to pop up shortly after the election campaign in the Senate. This has gone viral online. Kim Pate, independent senator, and I'll prove she's not an independent in just a moment, floated this one out with a new name, the Guaranteed Livable Basic Income.
This chamber has long known that Canada can and must do better. For more than 50 years, across group and party lines, senators have advanced the idea of cash transfers sufficient to live and available to anyone living in poverty.
If you look at Kim Pate's Twitter handle, it says she's an independent senator, but she's not an independent. She's a far leftist nutcase. How do I know that? Because in the same speech, she did this.
Speaking today on the traditional unceded, unsurrendered, and unreturned territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe, I acknowledge that those our governments choose to abandon are disproportionately women, Indigenous and Black peoples, and others who are racialized, as well as persons with disabilities.
So this is the next way the Liberal government is going to entrench itself. And boy, is it a good way to do that. They're going to give free stuff to people who don't work for it. And you are going to pay for it. If you're a hardworking Canadian, they're going to take your money and give it to people who don't want to work. And they become dependent on government. There's signs out in the forest that say, don't feed the bears. Why? Because they become dependent on people. People are worse than bears. You give them free stuff, they're going to expect it for the rest of their lives and never work for it. George Bernard Shaw famously said, the politician that robs Peter to pay Paul will always have a friend in Paul, and you are Peter. So they now control your money to give it to people who don't work. Boy, is that ever an incentive to vote Liberal. The Liberals give me free stuff. I'll vote for them forever. They will be entrenched forever with this one. And then the Liberal government wants to control everything that happens in this country, and they're going to put that into law. They walked out yesterday. They call it the One Canadian Economy. It talks about removing trade barriers, but I think this is about removing all rights of provinces. Listen to Mark Carney.
The second component of the bill enables the federal government to identify and expedite nation-building projects. It's become too difficult to build in this country. For too long, when federal agencies have examined a new project, their immediate question has been why. With this bill, we will instead ask ourselves how. Once a project has been designated as being in the national interest, a new federal major project office will bring together all the relevant federal departments and agencies to provide a single set of conditions that must be met for the project to move forward. Legislation mandates that there must be meaningful consultation with Indigenous peoples, consistent with Section 35 of the Constitution and the duty to consult during both the process of determining which projects are in the national interest and the development of the rigorous conditions for each of those projects.
So now Mark Carney and the Liberal Party of Canada, under the guise of this new federal bureaucracy, are going to control everything that happens. And by saying they're going to control everything that happens, nothing's going to happen. Nothing. I've said it here many times before. I've mentioned it for weeks. People are starting to catch on. Here's Carney ignores his own constitutional power to approve pipelines. This is an article from Carson Jeremiah today. He's using provincial obstructionists as an excuse not to build them. I call them outs. I've been mentioning this for weeks. This is one of his outs. Provincial obstructionists, David Eby, Legault in Quebec, can't build it. They don't want it. The other is the Aboriginal thing. The Aboriginals don't want it. He never has to look like the bad guy. Never. I mean, he admitted this is exactly what's going to happen.
We will not impose a project on a province. We need consensus behind these projects, and we need the participation of Indigenous peoples.
So the Liberals are going to give themselves extraordinary powers to control everything that happens in this country, everything that gets built. A lot of things won't get built. The things we need won't get built because that's the plan of Mark Carney and the Liberal Party. We know where they stand. We know that they're part of a cult, a climate cult. And we need consensus, and that never happens in this country. They control your mind. They control what you can see, what you can say, what you can hear. They give more money to the CBC. They entrench the CBC into law, so you can't get rid of it. They give them double the money. They give more money, I think, to the legacy media. I think that's coming. They're going to start cutting off people like myself who have an independent voice. Can't have that happening. They're going to start going after social media so they can control all the information. Never has heard a discouraging word about the Liberal Party again in the country. It helps them entrench themselves. And then, of course, the idea of a guaranteed livable basic income. The Liberals become Santa Claus. They give money, your money, to people who don't want to work for the rest of time. What's going to happen next? Well, here's what I think is going to happen next. The Liberals don't like that Alberta has power, or are provinces that have natural resources. They don't like that we have natural resources. Because despite what a lot of people online think, the natural resources belong to the provinces. It does not belong to the federal government. Someone in the Liberal Party is going to table a bill saying that the natural resources in Alberta, Saskatchewan, all the rest of the provinces are in the national interest, and they're going to take control of the natural resources in our country as well. And then it'll be complete. They'll have complete control over everything. The money, your mind, all development, everything. I think they're entrenching themselves. And they're happy to do it. Never will we see a conservative government again. It's possible, particularly if they get the first two, controlling the information and giving money to people who don't work. Free stuff. Thanks for watching. What do you think? Leave your comments below. Please give me a thumbs up if you like the channel. Please give me a thumbs up if you like the video. Please subscribe if you like the channel. Please ring the bell for notifications. Have a great weekend. I'll see you in the next one.